JB here, Thursday, August 21st, on this Thursday afternoon, brought to you by Cracker Barrel, taking the country out of the country store since 1968, or whatever their inception. Sarcasm aside, talk really quick about the market. Some names I'm looking to go from there. S&P in the red. I think it's going to be five sessions to the downside, albeit small pullbacks, right? It's like a little bit of like a water torture situation where it's okay. We haven't pulled back substantially, but just enough uh, to be irritating. And uh, another day with tech names kind of showing some weakness, although strength at the open and weakness and strength again in the afternoon. So kind of back and forth, but no concrete direction. I guess that's to be somewhat to be expected. We have Fed Chair Powell tomorrow at 10 a.m. The S&P is pricing in nearly a 1% implied move. So I think I put the range up earlier today. So last week at this time, last Friday, the range was 1.38%. Now it's 0.956%. So only 0.4% of the volatility has come out since the start of the week. So that's impressive. And now if you take a look at that straddle, it puts the SPY between 629 and 640, pretty much 642. It's kind of somewhat surprising. I wouldn't say surprising, but it's like I think tomorrow, hopefully there's nothing, right? I hope he just kind of stays the course. Maybe it spins a little more dovish, and we're good to go. The concern will be that there's somewhat of another continued hawkish spin, and then I mean, just we a long way to go to September's Fed meeting, and then start of September, October, traditionally some weak, historically speaking, months. So we'll see how things play out. I don't have my bear suit on. I don't have my bull horns on. I'm open to both sides. Gonna be cautious on both sides of the tape. Open to puts and calls until things work out. And today's one of those days. I didn't do much. A lot of the names I'm looking at. For example, obviously Reddit's been a great trade over the last couple months since the April lows. I mean, it's pretty much flatlined all day today. And I had on in the chat room yesterday the 240 strikes, and it was 219 yesterday. They were like 40 or 50 cents, and then you start looking at it, and I mean, if you had sat there and got, they're 5 cents on the bid now. So uh, now you go to 235s. They're 32 by 37. The stock's at 220. What are those going to be like tomorrow? I don't know if we're going to have some kind of move. The his his speech is at 10 o'clock, so leaves a little wiggle room. It's like I was saying, it's better than having like after the close on Friday. That would not be fun, right? It'd be a long weekend. Uh, so we'll see how things play out here. So that's kind of the markets there. You take a look at today's trading range. I mean, showed some strength at the open, bounced around, then some weakness around 1 o'clock, all the way down to under 634 again. That 633 handle held up yesterday. So right now we're at higher highs, higher lows. I don't know if that's going to continue. Yesterday we had the hammer candle. So I was talking about the hammer reversal. Well, that hasn't panned out unless we get some nice action here with 36 minutes left to the close. But now we have a doji candle. So indecisiveness. And then we'll see. And it's like, oh, S&P is back to levels not seen since the first week in August, or the week and a half into August. So again, try to keep things in context where it's really nothing crazy. It's just frustrating that we haven't. It was slow and steady for a little while, especially at the start of August. Hopefully, we get back to that. You have to think there at some point to be a little pull, and then hopefully no chinks tomorrow, chinks in the armor, with the market rally if Fed Chair Powell surprise. All right, so that's kind of an overall market. So now there's not much to talk about on individual names. First, I did a lot of the rant this morning on Cracker Barrel. I'll talk more about it again today. Kind of in hindsight, I remember reading that article, like I was saying in the Wall Street Journal. I don't know if it was in the spring when I started reading that they're renovating stores, and I talked about it was one of my top five stocks. I think it was 2015. I didn't get a chance to go look, but I know a lot about the name, right? I mean, to me, I always talk about it's. Well, I was talking about it this morning, but it's like nostalgia, right? I mean, they're not. It's not a store. It's not a restaurant you go into and expect the shiny floors, no dust, all that. It's almost like you welcome it. Now, I'm not saying anywhere you have a establishment where the food is served. Of course, it needs to meet. He has to have some stringent cleanliness policies, right? Wash your hand, all that fun stuff. But they had their country store. It just and then to see this happen, it's just kind of like disappointing. And you go back to some of these other names and casual dining restaurants and things over the years, and you try and find similarities and where companies go wrong. And maybe I'm wrong with this, right? Um, but I don't think so. And I post that link to the Chili's article on the Slate, and there's been a lot of them. People always wondering why. Oh my gosh, look at Brinker's Eat is going bonkers. Why is that stock up so much? Because that company was able to really narrow things down and execute on their business, their marketing, their menu, and their pricing, and their cleanliness, and that was great for Chili's. I don't think that same you can't take that blueprint and then just copy and paste it and put in the Cracker Barrel business, right? I don't think that works. I think the part of their business and what makes them like a destination for a lot of folks is not because of cleanliness, or it's because of the clutter, the country feel, the homeliness, and then the food part of it too, right? I mean, it's not like they're breaking down. People aren't. It's not like they have the best mashed potatoes or chicken or breakfast menu or something. It's just that it's the price part of it, and then the whole atmosphere. So it's like a family thing. And there's not a lot of those out there. So I go on rants for a while. So I got those puts because you have to think it's gonna their business was already somewhat struggling, right? So their last earnings call, the CEO comes on and she has a long uh well, she's only been with Cracker Barrel since like 2024, 2023, but she has a long tenured history of being in casual dining. She was with Taco Bell for a while. She was in Starbucks, and then she was in some other retails and things like that. So she has experience there, but I don't know how much she's trying to translate that into Cracker Barrel. I think she's missing the mark. And you look, she had some interviews. I know she was on Good Morning America yesterday saying, "Oh, our our managers of our locations are asking, pleading, when are we going to get renovated?" I'm like, what do you think would a manager who reports to you, or reports to someone who reports to you, or reports to someone who reports to someone who reports to you, is going to say to you if they meet you at some kind of event where you have all the managers? They're not going to go to say, what the heck are you doing? You know what I mean? I mean, maybe they would, but you have the chance that some of these CEOs, that they're arrogant and probably not malleable in regards to their views of what the business. It's like the snowball's already going downhill in regards to their transformation. So, and renovations, I don't think they're going to take too well if you critique it, right? So she's saying it like that. I'm like, what do you think your reports are going to say to you? That's a horrible idea. Like, the idea's already in motion. So I think she's totally, I mean, maybe she's not off base with what's going on. So that was why. So I got those puts. I mean, I wish earlier this year I got some. It was back after Liberation Day. So all the way down to $50 today. The calls were solidly green. Close. I think they were close to 50%, and then it started to bounce. And I'm doing more digging and research, and of course, there's a lot of hoopla. I'm sure there's a lot of media coverage locally, nationally, in regards to what's going on with their logo. And some folks should think it's just a logo, but this has been going on for a while. Um, but then you start looking, and back when it was one of my top five stocks. Big Larry. I used to Big Larry's. There's a at locations and commercials over the years that you hear, and for some reason it always rung in my head. Big Barry's or something like that, or maybe it's Crazy Eddie. That's what I always got in my head. But this guy had a big stake in Cracker Barrel back when I had my as one of my top five stocks. Stock was $30 and 40, then $100, all the way up. This guy was crying. Kept adding his stake. Sorry, folks. Kept adding to his stake. Kept writing letters to the company, trying to get on the board. I think he finally got on the board. I think he sued them. So he's done a lot of that, and he's still here 10 years later. And now he cried, and when they started renovations, that his investment used to be like 400 million. Now it's 150 million. So, he's obviously up in arms, and I'm sure this is really getting him going. But the thing is, he actually he turned around Steak and Shake. And I don't think Steak and Shake's a big thing in the Northeast. I've seen him. I don't know if it's out west. Is it in by the In-N-Out Burgers in Vegas and California? Maybe it's in the South in Florida too. I have to go look at the location. Texas. I not very familiar with the brand, but supposedly, I mean, back when I did research on them, those weren't doing so well, and they're doing better. I think they grew like 40% there. So you have to think he's either going to do something, or some kind of activist stake's going to come in. I mean, the company does. I think it's 3 billion in revenues, and it's a $1 billion market cap. So there's things they can do, and I don't know about their real estate situation, right? So when you have these chains, a lot of the value that's created, or that's held by these chains, is their real estate. And I remember, speaking of Target recently, Bill Ackman back in the day, that was his big bull case. He first it was J.C. Penney's, and then it was Target, or maybe it was Target first, then J.C. Penney's. I don't know which, but both he timed completely wrong. Well, he timed JCPenney. There was no timing on JCPenney. He got it wrong. And Target, he got it wrong because, it tanked horrible. And then that was the start of its rebirth and going nuts and went bonkers from when he got out of his stake. But a lot of what he wanted to do was extract the value via the real estate. So I have to look again. This is things I didn't have a chance to do as the days going on here today. But as it starts to bounce, I'm like, either someone's going to come do an activist stake from where it is now, or Big Larry's going to do something, or or there's value in there, and people are going to see the value and say, hey, the floor's at $50. So I'm not going to fight it, right? Maybe it trades down, and you look at the Liberation Day lows, 30, 37, but a lot of stocks were way off their highs here. I don't know that it goes all the way back there. So maybe a name I'll revisit as I do more due diligence, but that's the thought process there. So that's why I got into puts, and that's why I got out the puts later in the day as we started to bounce. So close those out for a small gain. We're pretty much flat. I'll call it flat, and then at some point I'll revisit possibly. But that's kind of like the back end story. I use the analogy too. I mean, if you're familiar, I don't even know where Boston Market obviously originated in Boston, probably, but Boston Market used to be a big chain on the Northeast, at least. It sold, meatloaf, mashed potatoes, cream spinach, corn, uh, rotisserie chicken, like very good stuff. Collard greens, I think they had all that stuff. It was like a niche because it's not something you can go into you can't go into a McDonald's and get that. You can't go into a Wendy's, TGA Fridays. Well, actually, they did bankruptcy. Chili's. They don't have all that as part of their menu. So if that's what you're craving, here's our solution for you. So for some reason they had 1,400 locations. They failed to execute. Now they have, I think it was like 10 restaurants left because they declared bankruptcy and someone just bought the last couple uh, stores that are open and then bought the name brand or the namesake. But my comparison is some of these chains, and Cracker Barrel thinks they're immune to this. I mean, they're publicly traded companies, so there's means for them to extract liquidity if they need to. But it's like I mean, that's the wrong road to go down. All right, rants for other days. That's my rant on Cracker Barrel. I might revisit. Just quick on other names, Broadcom all the way down to 286 by 1 o'clock, back up to 289, back down to 287, back up to 289 right now. I'm just going to hold the last of my puts were solidly in the green over 100% at times, and they've been flat, and they're slightly in the red. I only have a couple left. I'll just continue to hold those. Yeah, the 280 is at 43 cents. Just as a hedge into tomorrow, it is, 1% implied move for tomorrow. So, I mean, the SPY could open at 629. If that's the case, Broadcom's down 3%, right? If Broadcom's down 3%, my calls are back in the money or in the money. They were never in the money yesterday, but they'll be up substantial. So that's the thought process there. Uh, Palo Alto too, right? At 11 o'clock, the stock's at 180 on the button. I thought, oh, my 175 is going to come back to life. They're flat, and then boom, it bounces. Another name, I'll just continue to hold those. You know what? If it's a red day again tomorrow for Palo Alto, I might look for some puts into next week because that 200-day moving average looks like pretty strong resistance. So that's Palo Alto. And then disappointing here, Target. Target actually is rallying off the low since 2 o'clock, only down 1.5%. But I was hoping for some continuation from yesterday. Walmart, I mean, Walmart, good numbers, just disappointing. So I'll keep an eye on that because I might look for some strikes into next week or September strikes. 105s look interesting on a risk reward basis. Oh, and then Serve Robotics, right? I mean, flat as a pancake here. Let's see. One of its quietest sessions in recent memory. Hasn't done much. 910, 920, 917, 920. So it could be, while it's quiet, it might be a time to load some later dated strikes. So I'll just continue to watch that one. I was watching Lemonade today all the way up to 58. I actually just hit lows right now at 56 and change. That's probably revisit tomorrow. And then the other thing, so after the close today, you have Intuit, Raw Stores, Zoom. Is it Zoom? But I start pulling up tickers, and I'm like, wow, Intuit's down from 770 or so all the way down to $700. And then you start looking at some of the other software names, and ServiceNow was the name I was looking for puts back at the end of July into August. That's at 878. And you look at some of these names, like, is there something else going on in the software space? Is it like, and then, obviously the cloud names too, MDB and Snow, and MDB just can't get footing all the way down to 206 at the open today. It's just been chopping around, but definitely something to watch into the close. Like Intuit, I was looking for some to trade for downside at the start of this year and the end of last year, as the new administration was kind of looking to cut back on not only free tax returns, but all these different things that you need to have to file taxes. It's like, it's insane. So when you have companies that are pretty much profiting from the fact that people have to file taxes, like, you think about that, like how crazy a business is that? I get the accounting, right? So accounting, you have a big business that does millions of dollars or whatever. So you need someone to do you know, do all the back end stuff, right? Your general ledger. But when you're a small household, it's like insane to think of all the different things you have to know, be aware of, and it's like you need to pay someone so you know all the loopholes so you can make sure you get your full tax return. One of those days that's all got to be reformed. But it was a name, and I was looking for some inexpensive, uh, puts to play for downside. But it did sell off, didn't pan out, and then they had their earnings, and the stock went bonkers into February, or I think it's February. I have to go look it up. But now you look, they report earnings after close, and the puts are insane. Right? You get all the way down to $600. There's 60 by 90 with 1 day left to expiration. $41 move implied. So was that 8%, 7%? But even the premiums are pretty high, even the further out of money strikes. So I'll probably stay away. But interesting, maybe it's a trend in the software space. That's it, folks. 23 minutes to the close. Have a great day. I'll be back on audio later. Rock and roll.